Let's get right into it. Number 10. Formaldehyde fresh milk. The killer in your kitchen. Picture this. It's 1890. You're a kid reaching for a cold glass of milk. But that milk? It's been preserved with the same chemical they pump into dead bodies at the funeral home. Yeah, you heard that right. Your great-great-grandparents were literally drinking embalming fluid with their morning cereal. Here's the sick part. The formaldehyde actually made the milk taste sweeter. So kids were begging for more of this death juice, thinking it was a treat. Parents had no idea they were basically poisoning their own children with every sip. In Indiana alone, over 400 kids died from what they called embalmed milk. 400 dead kids from drinking milk. But wait, it gets worse. Before the formaldehyde craze, dairy producers had even more twisted ideas. They'd dump in plaster dust to make the milk look whiter. Sometimes they'd blend in actual calf brains to make it creamier. I'm not making this up. One newspaper in 1900 tested milk samples and found worms, sticks, hair, and actual chunks of cow poop in the milk that people were drinking. So next time you're grossed out by milk that's a day past its expiration date, just remember, at least it's not seasoned with funeral juice and garnished with manure. Number 9. Ancient Egypt's toothbreaker bread. The sandwich that destroyed smiles. Imagine biting into your lunch and hearing your teeth crack. Not from a hard crust, from actual rocks baked right into your bread. Welcome to ancient Egypt, where every meal was basically a dental demolition derby. Here's what happened. When Egyptians ground their grain, tiny chunks of stone from the grinding wheels would chip off and mix with the flour. And since Egypt is one giant sandbox, wind would blow sand straight into the dough. So every single bite was like chewing on sandpaper, day after day, meal after meal. Their teeth were being ground down to nothing. The enamel would wear away, exposing the raw nerves underneath. Ever had a toothache? Now imagine that pain, but in every single tooth with no dentist for the next 3,000 years. And remember, this was before antibiotics. So when those exposed nerves got infected, and they always did, that simple toothache could kill you. Your jaw would swell up. The infection would spread to your brain. Game over. The Egyptians tried to fix this by making their own toothpaste. Their brilliant solution? Mix crushed rocks with herbs and salt. Because obviously, the cure for too many rocks in your food is put more rocks in your mouth. Number 8. Arsenic green desserts. The Victorian poison party. Victorian dinner parties were deadly. And I'm not talking about the small talk. Picture this. You're at a fancy party in 1850. Someone hands you a slice of the most beautiful bright green cake you've ever seen. The color is so vivid, it almost glows. That's because it's made with actual poison. That stunning green came from something called Scheele's green. Sounds fancy, right? It's basically arsenic mixed with copper. These people were literally eating poison because it looked pretty. Victorian bakers were dumping this toxic green dye into everything. Candies, jellies, fancy cakes, birthday treats for kids. All packed with deadly arsenic. Here's the insane part. Everyone knew arsenic was poison. It wasn't a secret, but apparently if you made the poison pretty enough, people would eat it anyway. There's this story about a 19-year-old candy maker who got violently sick just from making these green sweets. Not eating them, just making them. But the Victorians didn't stop at food. They used the same arsenic green in their wallpaper, their dresses, their artificial flowers. These people were basically marinating themselves in poison 24/7, eating it, wearing it, sleeping surrounded by it. No wonder so many of them died young. Number 7. World War I's rhubarb mistake. The government's deadly diet tip. 1917. Britain is starving. World War I has cut off food supplies. And someone in the government has history's worst idea. Hey, they said, looking at rhubarb plants. Why are we only eating the stalks? Look at all these big, beautiful leaves going to waste. This was about as smart as using poison ivy for salad. See, while rhubarb stalks make great pies, the leaves are basically nature's way of saying do not eat. They're packed with something called oxalic acid. This stuff doesn't mess around. It can shut down your kidneys, stop your muscles from working, turn your insides into a disaster zone. But the British government starts telling everyone to eat these toxic leaves. Official posters, radio announcements, eat rhubarb leaves for victory. People started cooking these leaves by the pound. They thought they were being good citizens, helping the war effort. Instead, they were poisoning themselves for king and country. This wasn't some random guy's bad advice. This was the actual government saying, hey everyone, eat these poisonous leaves. They're totally fine. They skipped the whole, maybe we should test this first step, and went straight to, let's feed it to the entire country. Number 6. Franklin's lead-lined lunch. The canned food catastrophe. The Franklin expedition of 1845 had the best technology money could buy, state-of-the-art ships, the finest equipment, and enough canned food to last for years. Too bad those fancy cans were slowly killing every single person on board. See, these weren't your modern aluminum cans. These bad boys were sealed with massive globs of lead solder, so much lead that it would slowly leak into the food. Every meal was basically a lead smoothie. Picture this. You're stuck in the Arctic ice, eating dinner, and with every bite, you're literally getting dumber, because that's what lead does. It attacks your brain, makes you weak, confused, paranoid. Now imagine trying to navigate through Arctic ice while your brain is turning to mush, making life or death decisions while lead is scrambling your thoughts like eggs. Years later, when they found the frozen bodies, scientists discovered the horrifying truth. These guys had insane levels of lead in their bones and hair. One sailor, John Torrington, went from being a healthy young man to looking like a walking skeleton. His body was so poisoned, it's a miracle he lasted as long as he did. This was supposed to be cutting-edge technology, the pinnacle of human achievement. Instead, it turned into history's deadliest meal plan. Every can they opened was another nail in their frozen coffin. Number 5. Medicinal mummies. Europe's cannibal cure. Medieval Europe had a cure for everything. Headache, stomach problems, broken heart. The solution was always the same. Eat a dead Egyptian. I'm not joking. From the 1100s to the 1800s, ground-up mummy was mainstream medicine. Every pharmacy in Europe sold it. Doctors prescribed it. Rich people kept it in their medicine cabinets. It all started with a translation screw-up. Ancient texts mentioned something called mumia, a natural tar-like substance, but Europeans thought it meant actual mummies, so they started grinding up Egyptian corpses and selling them as medicine. When they ran out of real Egyptian mummies, some businessmen got creative. They started making fresh mummies using recently dead bodies, so people thought they were consuming ancient pharaoh powder, but really, they were just eating Steve from down the street who died last Tuesday. Here's the really twisted part. Artists were literally painting with dead people. There was a color called mummy brown made from, you guessed it, ground-up mummies. So not only were people eating corpses, they were decorating their homes with corpse paintings. Shockingly, consuming bodies preserved with toxic chemicals and possibly carrying ancient diseases didn't cure anything. Who could have predicted that eating a 3,000-year-old corpse wouldn't fix your headache? Number 4. The Gladiator's cure. Rome's blood smoothie. Ancient Rome's favorite medicine came fresh from the arena floor. And by fresh, I mean still warm. Got epilepsy? Your Roman doctor had the perfect cure. A nice hot cup of gladiator blood. This wasn't some sketchy back-alley treatment. Major Roman medical texts recommended it. Respected doctors wrote detailed instructions on the best way to collect and drink fresh gladiator blood. The logic was simple and completely insane. Gladiators were strong and brave, so drinking their blood would give you their strength. It's like thinking you'll become a genius by eating Einstein's brain. After gladiator fights, people would literally rush into the arena with cups. They'd crowd around the fallen fighters, trying to catch the blood before it hit the sand. The recommended dose? 3 spoonfuls every day for a month. When gladiator fights were eventually banned, people didn't give up their blood addiction. They just switched sources, started drinking blood from executed criminals instead, because apparently, murderer blood was the next best thing to warrior blood. Instead of curing anything, these people were basically playing disease roulette, drinking random people's blood in an age before anyone knew about blood types or viruses. What could possibly go wrong? Number 3. Roman Sweetener. The empire's brain-melting candy. The Romans had a sweet tooth so bad, it literally drove them insane. And I mean that literally. They had this stuff called sapa. Sounds fancy, right? It was grape juice boiled down in lead pots until it became thick and sweet. The lead from the pots would dissolve into the syrup, creating something called lead acetate, or as they should have called it, brain poison syrup. This stuff tasted incredibly sweet, sweeter than honey. The Romans couldn't get enough. They put it in everything: wine, sauces, desserts, kids' treats. Rich people especially loved it. The richer you were, the more lead syrup you consumed. Now imagine running an empire while your brain is slowly being pickled in lead, making huge military decisions, writing laws, all while lead is literally eating holes in your brain. Some historians think this explains why so many Roman emperors went completely bonkers, like Caligula, who tried to make his horse a government official, or Nero, who played music while Rome burned. Maybe they weren't just crazy, maybe they were lead poisoned. The really wild part? Some Roman writers actually warned about lead being dangerous, but everyone ignored them, because nothing says good decision-making like ignoring health warnings so you can keep eating your brain-damaged candy. Number 2. St. Anthony's fire, the bread that made you trip and die. Medieval bread wasn't just stale, it was psychedelic, deadly, and could make your limbs fall off. There was this fungus that loved to grow on rye grain. Looked harmless, just a little purple fuzz, but this wasn't your ordinary mold. This fungus was packed with the same chemicals that LSD is made from, plus a cocktail of other toxins that could literally make your body parts rot and fall off. Picture this. An entire village sits down for breakfast. They eat their daily bread. Within hours, everyone's having the worst trip of their lives, seeing demons, feeling like they're on fire, screaming about monsters crawling on their skin. But the hallucinations were just the beginning. The fungus would cut off blood flow to your arms and legs. First, your fingers would tingle, then turn black. Then, and this is the nightmare part, they'd just fall off. No surgery needed. They'd drop off like rotten fruit. In one outbreak in France, this demon bread killed 40,000 people. 40,000. Entire towns wiped out because their bread turned into a biological weapon. People called it St. Anthony's fire, because victims felt like they were literally burning alive. They'd beg to be thrown in rivers to cool the invisible flames. Meanwhile, their actual bodies were rotting away piece by piece. Number 1. Radioactive health drinks. The glowing death tonic. The 1920s had energy drinks that could literally make you glow in the dark, and not in a good way. Meet Radioactive, water mixed with radium, actual radioactive radium, marketed as liquid sunshine that would give you endless energy and eternal youth. People weren't just sipping this stuff, they were chugging it. One guy, Eben Byers, drank 3 bottles a day. He was a rich businessman who swore by his daily radiation dose, said it made him feel like $1 million, until his jaw started falling off, not loosening, not hurting, literally disintegrating, chunks of his jawbone just crumbling away. Doctors called it radium jaw, which is the medical term for your face is melting because you drank radiation. When Byers died, the newspapers ran the headline, "The radium water worked fine until his jaw came off." They had to bury him in a lead-lined coffin because his corpse was so radioactive, it could have killed the funeral guests. But Radioactive was just the beginning. People put radium in everything. Toothpaste that made your teeth glow. Face cream that gave you that radioactive glow. Hair products that made you literally radiant. There were radium chocolates, radium cigarettes, even radium suppositories, because apparently, some people wanted to be radioactive from the inside out. The craziest part? The ads promised this stuff would make you younger and healthier. Instead, it made your bones crumble, your jaw fall off, and your corpse so radioactive it needed special handling. But hey, at least you glowed in the dark. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.